Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are working on a painting of a spotted eagle ray. I went ahead and made some notes and we're going to learn about them while I make the painting, so enjoy. Before we get too far into it here, if you enjoy this video at any point, you learn something new, or you think this is interesting and you'd like to see more content like this, do me a favor, hit the like, subscribe, ring the bell, leave a comment. All the standard YouTube things. It makes a huge difference for the channel. It shows YouTube that this is stuff worth showing to other people, and it really helps me out. So thank you very much. You don't have to do it yet, but if you do enjoy, don't forget to leave a like before you leave this page. So now we can get into the video proper. Okay, I'm going to pull back the curtain for a minute. I am filming this on the Friday that it's supposed to go out, and so for the sake of myself and time-wise, I am not going to explain my painting process in this video. I'll just kind of read the information that I've taken notes about, and if you would prefer to kind of hear about how I'm just making decisions and doing the painting process here, there's plenty of videos on my channel that already do that. Feel free to check out most of the stuff on my channel. If you would prefer that in these videos I talk about the animal and explain my process, let me know. The last video I didn't explain my process. You guys didn't seem to have too many problems with it, but if you would prefer that I explain my painting process and tell you about the animal, let me know. Otherwise, I will just keep kind of explaining things about the animals that I'm talking about, and painting in the background. So like I said, leave a comment, tell me which would you prefer. Okay, so I would like to do a little disclaimer before we start. As you may know, if you've watched one of my videos before, playlist is up in the top corner. Sometimes, or every time, I use Wikipedia for my information. Now, usually Wikipedia is not really an issue. However, this page on Wikipedia is a little outdated, and it left me kind of a little warning banner up at the top that says some of this information may be out of date. So I went ahead and I read all the reviews on it, and I tried not to include any of the areas that it thinks are out of date. So some information may seem a little strange or a little out of order or a little short, and that's just because a lot of the info on here is out of date. Unfortunately, that's kind of to be expected with a site like Wikipedia, where it's publicly run. Not every subject is going to get equal attention as every other subject, and things change and they don't get updated, and it happens, but not a big deal. We're going to go ahead and get into this. So the spotted eagle ray, or scientific name Aeobatis nari, is a cartilaginous fish, meaning it doesn't have bones. Its skeleton is made of cartilage, much like a shark. You may know that sharks don't have bones. They're all cartilage. Rays and sharks are actually fairly similarly related. They are very close together on the tree of the way everything evolved. These guys are native to the Atlantic Ocean. They used to think that they were all over, but they have recently gone in, and I say recently, I don't know how many years ago, but they went in and they actually separated a few different species because there were noticeable enough differences to not consider them all specifically the spotted eagle ray. So this specific species is native to the Atlantic Ocean. Think the Caribbean islands, Gulf of Mexico, things like that. Warmer waters in the Atlantic Ocean. They are identifiable by a couple things. They typically have a dark back, dark blue or dark gray, with white spots or rings, and they've got that very light belly. And quite noticeably, they have their very large beak, almost looking shovel part to their nose, and that's actually a unique adaptation that we'll talk about a little bit later. They use it specifically for food, or for eating and looking for food. So we'll get into that a little later. They also don't have a stinger like you would expect from a typical stingray. They do have stingers. However, they have a couple actually near the base of the tail, near the kind of butt, essentially, the back of the main body part where the tail starts. There's a couple stingers there, as opposed to one down on the end of the tail, or partially a part of the way down the tail. It's actually a few of them closer to the base. These guys can get pretty big. A mature eagle ray can be up to 5 meters or 16 feet long. That's including the tail. 3 meters or 10 feet wide, which is, pretty big. And most shocking to me, they can weigh up to 203 kilograms or 507 pounds. So we'll round it and say about 500 pounds. 16 feet long, 10 feet wide, 500 pounds is insane. I've never seen an eagle ray in person, but I would not have thought that they were that big. I mean, I may have seen an eagle ray in person, like in an aquarium, but not that I can like pull to the forefront of my mind. You know what I mean? That's a big fish. That's a really big fish. So I thought that was pretty crazy. So moving on to kind of their life cycle, the development of these guys is called, forgive me here, oviviparous development, or they develop ovoviviparously. They is what. Sorry, it's a strange word. I'll put it here on the screen. You can see what it says. Ovoviviparously, or they have ovoviviparous reproduction, which means that they are hatched from an egg, but the egg stays inside the mother. They hatch internally, and the young feed off a yolk sac for some time before they are birthed out of the mother, which is pretty neat. It's kind of like the in-between zone. It's like, mammals and things, they give live birth. Birds, lizards, most birds and most lizards, they lay eggs and then have young hatch from an egg. For example, a chicken, hatches from an egg. But these guys, they have eggs that are, fertilized inside their bodies. They hatch inside the bodies. The babies live in there for some time, and then they are birthed afterwards, which I thought was pretty neat. They have a maximum of about 4 pups at a time per one of these litters. And when they're hatched, they're about the size of a standard sheet of paper. I think on the thing it said maybe a little bit bigger, maybe 13 or 14 inches across. But I'm thinking like 8 to 11, 8.5 by 11. Think standard sheet of paper. They're roughly that size as a baby. Diet-wise, these guys have a very similar diet to most other rays. They eat a lot of things on the bottom. If you look, their mouths are down here underneath their face, because they're eating things off the bottom of the floor. Things like crustaceans, crabs, shrimp, things like that, which are both crustaceans or conchs or shells, mollusks, things like that. Maybe small fish from time to time. And I mentioned earlier, they develop that kind of beak or shovel nose. What they will do is they'll use that nose to kind of root around in the ground, in the sand, and kick the sand up to find some of these crustaceans and other creatures just under the surface of the sand, so that they can then eat them, which is pretty neat. They're one of the very few species of rays that actively digs with their nose like that. They're one of the few species of rays that has a nose like that, so of course it's going to be the case. They also have some interesting behavior. If you've seen anything about an eagle ray before, you probably have seen them jumping out of the water. They do that from time to time, not only just to evade predators, but sometimes they just do it for fun. And they can jump pretty high out of the water, which is pretty neat. And they're also fairly social creatures. So they're often found in schools, not usually many more than 20. I think the article said 13 to 16 is the standard size, or 3 to 16 is the standard size. But it's not considered a school unless there's like 6 or more or something like that. I don't know how the determination works, but they are usually found in groups. Sometimes they will swim around solo in more shallow waters or in areas where they're not super commonly found. Really shallow waters, they won't school, but in the open water where you're most likely to find them, they are usually in a school. So let's talk about their interactions with humans. Because they're pretty big and pretty interesting to look at. They're very popular for the aquarium trade. However, they're far too big for personal collectors in most cases. So usually all of the trade for the aquarium purpose is actual public aquariums. So you may have seen them before if you've gone to any big aquarium near you, if it has a large enough tank to house an eagle ray. Like I said earlier, I think I've seen some before. There might be some in the Atlanta aquarium, which is one that I've been to. I'll double check that and put it up here. But they're also not really targeted for food very often. They are eaten if they're caught, but there's not like a specific industry for catching eagle rays. They often are caught as bycatch, like many other fish, and they will be eaten if they're caught, but they're not targeted specifically. Some other interactions I mentioned, they jump earlier. They have been known to jump into boats just because they're near or they're startled and they jump out of the water. They jump into a boat, which very rarely happens, but that would be crazy to see. That would be terrifying, I think, if I were in the boat and just a giant 300-pound fish jumped in the boat with me. Oh gosh, that would be awful. But typically they're relatively shy and they avoid humans. I did see something about potentially like solo divers. They have seen groups of 2 or 3 be somewhat curious about a solo diver who doesn't pose much of a threat, but generally they avoid human interaction. Some of the predators that you would likely expect these guys to have, like most rays, is primarily sharks that are going after these guys. It has a list here, things like tiger sharks, lemon sharks, bull sharks, silver tip reef sharks, and greater hammerheads. That's kind of the most common ones that you see hunting these guys. Those are the more common ones in the waters that these guys are inhabiting. They've even seen some sharks following females during the breeding season, or the birthing season, I suppose, not necessarily the breeding season, and snatching up pups just as soon as they're born, which is traumatic. You could imagine. I bet you would not want to see that. I certainly wouldn't. But circle of life and all that jazz. And now the not so fun part, conservation wise, these guys actually are okay. They're not threatened. They are considered near threatened, meaning that their population is healthy in the wild, but they are at kind of the cusp where they would rather we not continue to cause harm to them in their environments, because that could give them some trouble. But there's enough of them that they're not endangered yet. There have been some active breeding programs by the EAZA, which is the European Association of Zoos and Aquaria. That basically is kind of like the governing body when it comes to zoos and aquariums and things like that. They have all these lists of standards, and they go and they check out zoos, and they can accredit a zoo saying that it meets these standards. A zoo doesn't have to meet the standards, but if one does, you know that they're taking good care of their animals and they have proper enrichment and habitats and things like that. So you would prefer, if you're going to a zoo, one that is accredited by the AZA or the EAZA. But they have a breeding program with the EAZA, which is pretty neat. Essentially, a couple aquariums, they started breeding these guys to some success in order to kind of help mitigate the capture of these guys in the wild for aquarium purposes. Like I said, there is some trade. They're not really targeted for food, but they do get targeted for selling to aquariums and zoos and things like that. And so the EAZA had started a breeding program in a couple zoos that have had some mild success, which is awesome, because then they're captive bred animals, and so you're not taking something from the wild, and you're letting the wild ones be wild, you're letting the captive ones be captive. because in most cases, a captive bred animal you couldn't really release into the wild anyway, because it doesn't have the necessary functions and training and instincts to live in the wild necessarily. So you would rather have captive bred animals stay in captivity and wild animals stay out in the wild, which is pretty great. But that's going to do it for my notes. So we'll finish whatever I have to finish for this painting and we can get out of here. Okay, I figured we'd come outside for the outro by our lovely mango trees. You can see they're working on it. It's gonna take a minute, but in a few weeks here, maybe a month or so, we're gonna have some nice mangoes out here. But let's get a look at, oh, look, the sun's participating too. So here's our finished painting. I'm very happy with this. I really like how smooth the background is. I think it came out super nice. The colors are all pretty accurate. Everything looks like it's supposed to. And it's very, I would say graphic, I think is the word that I'm gonna use here. It's very tight, which I really like. I think it turned out really well. If you think that this turned out really well, do me a favor, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, ring the bell, all the standard YouTube things. It makes a huge difference for the channel. I really appreciate it. Share this with your friends if you think they would like it. You're gonna really enjoy this video up here that it's trying to play for you. And I think that's gonna do it. So I will see you guys in the next one.